Welcome to Volume 6 of Life in the Lobby. I want to just have a look at a couple of the incidents that I can recall where it was quite entertaining looking back on some of the arrests that we've had to make. Um, Over the years, and as I say, 30 years in the industry, I've arrested lots and lots of people. I've been in court for countless times and had to give evidence, etc. But leading up to all of that is actually what takes place. And although it can be a bit challenging, it can be daunting, it can be downright bloody dangerous in a lot of cases, when you look back on it, you start to see the funny side of things. At the time, the adrenaline takes over and you just go with it. But I remember three, three ones that have brought a smile to my face over the years. Um, One of them was a situation that I had. I was working in one of the big hotels in central London, and I was working a night shift. And part of our roles was to make sure that all of the entries, exits were secure, and the people who are not residents would not gain entry. And so we would lock doors and such like. But on this night, I was doing a patrol. I was doing a floor walk. I was just checking the areas, and it must have been about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And as I came on to, I think it was the second floor of this hotel. On the first floor, we had banqueting and conference rooms, and on the second floor, it was the start of the bedrooms. And I just in my normal checks, I checked in with the security staff, the backdoor security staff, and made sure that the front of house were all okay. The duty manager was fine, etc. And I was walking around the floors, uh, as we do. We were checking doors, making sure everything's okay. And as I walked around the corner, I saw this guy, and he just looked totally out of place. He was a tall, thin-looking guy, a bit dishevelled, and he was carrying towels, which looked at itself out of place. He wasn't a member of staff. I didn't recognise him as a member of staff, so I approached him and I identified myself. I asked him who he was. I said, "Are you a resident?" And he said, "No, I'm staying with a friend." I said, "But are you booked into the hotel?" And he went, "No, I'm staying with my friend." And the policies of the hotel at that time was non-residents were not allowed onto the floors after 11 p.m. So I kindly said to him, I said, "Would you mind just showing me where your friend is? I do need to speak to him just to clarify what you're saying." And my intention was just to give him a bit of a talking to and to escort him off the premises. And he said, "Yeah, that's not a problem." And he walked back, and I was following him along the corridors, and he was getting a bit faster, so I started to get a bit more apprehensive. And we came to a door, and the door was slightly ajar. And he knocked on the door, walked straight in, and the room was dark, and there was a guy in bed, and he sat upright. And this gentleman that I'd intercepted on the way turned around and he said, "Can you just tell this gentleman here that I was just in this room? I was here with you." And the guy looked at me and he went, "Yeah, he was just here a moment ago." And I said, "Okay, thank you very much for that, sir. I just need to get that confirmed." And I started to preach to him that non-residents, etc., were not allowed onto the hotel floors, etc. And as I'm saying this, the other guy is slowly walking towards the door. And the guest in the bedroom and who's in the bed, he turned to me and says, "But I've no idea who he is. I've just woken up and found him in my room." And as he said that, this gentleman ran, closely followed by me. And I had a radio and I was calling for help, I was calling for assistance, and the duty manager responded and he said, I'll join you. At that point, the guy ran down the fire exits, but the duty manager was coming up from the ground floor, so he couldn't go down that floor. So he stopped on the first floor and ran into one of the function rooms, one of the meeting rooms, followed by me and followed by the duty manager. When we got into the room, he'd actually jumped onto the windowsill and he was trying to open the window. He was going to jump out. So the first thing I did is I tried to grab hold of him, and the nearest thing was his leg, which I held on to, and he pulled him towards me to try and bring him off the windowsill. The duty manager grabbed his other leg, And as he fell down, he hit his backside on the windowsill, and he kicked out with his leg, and he caught the duty manager uh, with the blow. The duty manager just let go of it and ran out. So I was stuck there on my own. By this time, he'd managed to get the window open, and he struggled straight through, and he literally dropped. And this drop was 18 foot easily. And as I looked out, I just saw him running off up the road up Park Lane. And I thought, I'm not going out that door. I'm not going out that window. So I ran back down, got the duty manager, said, call the police. And as I was running out, my intention was to run out through the main door of the hotel. I ran to the door and went to run out and went. I forgot to unlock the doors. So I ended up on my backside, nose splattered up against the window. Luckily, the window's held. Opened up the door and went out. And all I could see was this gentleman's silhouette or shape just looming off down. Sorry, not looming off. Running off down Park Lane towards what was it? Marble Arch? No, Hyde Park Corner. And as I'm standing there thinking I'm never going to catch that guy, a police car comes past, and I jumped in the car in the road and I waved them down, and they stopped. I told them what had happened, and they said jump in. So I jumped in the back of the car and we went after this guy. And as we were going down Park Lane, the guy obviously saw there was a police car behind him, and he jumped. He went straight into a building on the left-hand side. And it turned out it was a residential accommodation property. So the police car screeches to a halt. The two police officers, it was a male officer and a female officer, both jumped out in pursuit of this guy. I tried to get out, and I've got another locked door. It had the child lock on. So I'm desperately trying to scramble my way out of the car. I ended up jumping over the top of the seats. And as I'm opening the passenger side door of the police car, I see the same guy running past me. He'd actually gone into the building right the way through, come out the side door and ran back onto Park Lane. He saw me and went back in to the same building. And as I went after him, the female police officer also joined us. And she went after him, and to be honest, she was faster than me. And we chased him back into the apartment block, to the buildings. And I lost them. As I ran in there, I didn't know which way he'd gone, several corridors. And so I turned left and I heard a noise. And it was there was a noise coming from what looked like a cupboard area. And as I opened that door, all I can see is the female police officer holding onto this guy. So I jumped in, took hold of him as well. At the same moment, another half a dozen police officers piled into the room and literally took everybody down to the floor. So I'm stuck underneath this guy, the female police officer, and a half a dozen other officers, all piling onto them. Now, once they'd extracted each other from this area and they managed to take hold, they didn't know if I was an assailant or if I was a help, until the lady said, he's with us, he's okay. And obviously we managed to arrest the guy. But it was, when I'm looking back on it, the whole concept of it, it was like something out of the Keystone Cops. Literally, we running up, all it needed was that music that goes with it, where the police are chasing after somebody and they were just going round and round in circles. It was quite entertaining, quite funny. And ultimately, the guy was arrested. It turns out he was a prolific hotel burglar. And we'd actually been after him for quite a while. We knew of his techniques, but we didn't really have a visual of him. We didn't know what he looked like. And the even better thing for me is I found out a few days later that my boss, who at the time the head of security and the deputy, had both found him on the floors previously and just escorted him off the premises. So, strike one for me. It was a good one. We did go to the court. It was a nightmare going through the courts, and in the end, it was actually kicked out through lack of evidence, because all we could prove that he was on the premises. We couldn't prove intent, etc. He said he'd found the door open and he just walked in. So yeah, but he was a known prolific hotel burglar, which was always funny. Anyway, that's one. That was quite entertaining. But we also come across a lot of eccentric people, and I remember working with one of the other security officers, a young lady by the name of Colette, and Colette is again a very good security officer. She's retired, well, not retired. She's actually left the industry now, and I got called by Colette because we had a VIP visitor coming to the hotel on this occasion, and we had this gentleman who was acting very, very strangely. He was dressed as Elvis Presley, even down to the dark glasses and the quiff and everything else, even the suit. And we'd had run-in with him before where we'd asked him to leave, and he wasn't very cooperative. So we approached this gentleman again this time, and somehow he'd managed to get hold of a drink. He'd obviously been at the bar, and the bar had served him. Didn't bother to call us, saying that we got an Elvis Presley impersonator in. So we were asking him to leave the premises. He was known to us, and he was not welcome. And he was arguing with us, and he didn't want to go. And we didn't want to have to physically eject him, but we were also very wary and very conscious that we had the VIP arriving in the hotel lobby very shortly, and he was in the library section, which is right next door to the lobby. So we advised him that he should be leaving. He's not welcome in the premises, as he already knew, and he started becoming argumentative. So we decided it was time that he had to leave. So I approached him, and I was quite confident that we could remove him peacefully. But as I took a step up the stairs towards him, nice and calmly, no big deal about it, he decided he was going to kick me, and he kicked me straight in the chest. Bear in mind, he was 3 steps up, so his kick bloody hurt, and I went flying down the stairs. And as I turned round, all I could see is Colette calmly going up to him, taking his glass from him, taking hold of him, going, "Now you don't want to be doing that, do you?" I got up. We managed to take hold of him, restrain him, and called the police for assault. And he did end up going to the court, and he was charged with assault. The funny part of it is when we were in the court, he denied actually assaulting me, even though he was on CCTV and we had witnesses. And he actually turned around to the judge and he said, if I'd have kicked him, he would not be walking today. And he actually left. He moved out of the witness box and started doing karate kicks, martial arts kicks all around the court, and was duly detained by the court officials there and found guilty, obviously, and he was escorted off. When the police actually found a vehicle outside, his car was literally plastered with all this Elvis memorabilia, and all he had to see out of the window was a space like that. That's all he could see, and there was a space on either side of the windows. How he hadn't been pulled up and dealt with on those circumstances, I don't know. It was deemed that he had mental health issues, but yeah, another assault. And looking back, it was funny. I got beaten up by Elvis Presley. Okay. Such is life, eh? The last one I want to quickly talk to you about and tell you about is an incident where we were having repairs, a refurbishment done to one of the bars in the hotel, one of the big hotels I worked at. And we had scaffolding outside, and we had shutters up, make sure that there was no damage to the property or the windows, etc. And this made an area of the bar very dark. And we got a call one evening, the security department got a call from the bar, and the barman said, I think we've got some young ladies working the bar. In other words, he believed that there was prostitutes plying their trade in the bar. When we went to have a look, he said that they were in the alcove area, which you couldn't really see in, and there was two ladies and one gentleman. And he said, I'm pretty sure I recognise them as being here before and being ejected, although he had actually served them. Well, his defence on that is he said the gentleman, he didn't actually serve the women. He didn't see the women until after the drinks had been served. And we took a cursory look to see if we recognised them. I didn't recognise them, and my colleague at the time was a big Scots guy called Brian. And Brian was a fantastic guy who's unfortunately no longer with us. But we decided we needed to be able to see better. So we went outside and we looked through, we got onto the scaffolding, we were able to see directly in. And when we got there and we were looking in, we were trying to see what was going on. They couldn't see out from the area. We saw this lady, young woman, take out what was called a sledge then. When we had credit cards them days, we didn't have touch screen or PIN codes. This really was the old-fashioned way. You put the credit card on and you did a slide and it imprinted your credit card details onto a receipt. And she actually did that whilst we were watching. She took the payment from this gentleman, put it onto the slider, took the payment off, gave him his card back, pulled off the receipt and gave him a receipt. And then got onto her hands and knees right in front of him. And I'll leave the next few minutes up to your own imagination as to what she was doing. Brian and I almost fell off the scaffolding. Well, actually, we did get off the scaffolding very quickly because we had a sex act going on in our main bar. We actually run straight in there. We stopped the action. We stopped the incident from happening, and we called the police because this lady and her colleague were soliciting on our premises, which is a criminal act. So the solicitation was the crime. So we called the police. We detained them until the police arrived, including the gentleman, who wasn't too happy. And two police officers came. There was a male again and a female officer. The female officer took charge of the gentleman and took all of his details, which he was very, very embarrassed about, and rightly so. But the other officer didn't seem to be any concerned with the fact that there'd been a lewd act being carried out in a public place. He was more concerned with the slider, the sledge, and he'd confiscated that as proof and as evidence, and we had to give statements. The females admitted to it, took the charge and took whatever fines. We never had to go to court with that, and to be totally honest, I don't know what happened as a consequence of that. All I know is they did plead guilty to prostitution, and the gentleman was subsequently barred from our premises. But again, looking back on that, you wouldn't believe the things that go on. And it was quite funny, it was quite entertaining. The sledge coming out, the card being swiped, and then the action being taken. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with that. I'll see you soon in Volume 7. Take care.